This is Driving Solutions, exclusively on CPTnews.com.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining us on another edition of Driving Solutions here at CBT News. The recent Combating Auto Retail Scams, or also known as CARS, ruling by the Federal Trade Commission sent shockwaves throughout the auto retail industry upon its announcement. According to the FTC, the rule, which is slated to go into effect on July 30th, is intended to help put an end to abusive retailing practices. But how exactly will this rule affect car dealers and the customers that they serve? Well, we're about to find out. On today's show, we are pleased to welcome back Rusty West with MarketScan, now part of the S&P Global Mobility Company, to tell us more about this new CARS ruling. Thank you so much, Rusty, for joining us on the show once again. And first and foremost, how's life? How you doing? Happy New Year.
Oh, hey, Happy New Year. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy our conversations. Life is great. And I'm having a ball, right? We're surrounded by some very, very talented people. Obviously, with an organization like S&P, there's just massive amounts of data assets.
Yeah,
and
no question.
Trying to find a balance and normalizing this stuff and kind of cobble it together to go solve big problems is challenging, but it's super fun challenging. So it's been quite a journey.
So let's kind of jump in here. What's your take on this CARS ruling, and what effect do you think it'll have?
So this is I don't want to say it's puzzling, right? I'm not surprised by it. The timing of it is just whatever it is. And obviously the title of this ruling speaks for itself. It wasn't like, hey, this is, we want to help you sell cars. It's, combating auto retail scams. So, I think regardless of whether it's this CARS ruling or if it's just consumer demand, commerce is evolving and it's changing. People want a seamless, literally transparent, consistent, accurate message every step of their journey, right? In order to be in compliance, and there's a lot of elements that are going to be required to be in compliance with this ruling, just like there have been with all these other things, initiatives that have come, over the last, I've been doing this for 36 years now, right? So, right when you think you've seen it all, you just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. But all these forces have driven the automotive space to evolve into a manner where it's a better buying experience. And this is, I think, just, while it's a big hammer, it's just another driver that's going to force this change. And the change has been a long time coming anyway. Yeah.
So one of the requirements is that selling retailers must give the consumer complete and transparent information when discussing monthly payments, which is something that's near and dear to your heart. With consumers having become more payment shoppers, how are retailers going to be affected by the FTC ruling in this particular area? That's a big one.
So, there's an exposure, right? But there's been an exposure before. It's more front and center. I'm not a big fan of the name of the ruling, but the fact that it's hit the scene when it's hit the scene is tremendous for not just our business, right? Because we calculate a bunch of payments, but I think it's tremendous for the whole ecosystem. It's going to force more of an adoption. And the dealerships really need to take notice of who they partner with, right? And there's some great technologies out there. We're very proud of what we've built, but there's some great technologies out there that aren't MarketScan S&P, but they really need to take notice of who's going to be representing them in like a digital facing or digital retailing facing world, right? Because they're held to a higher standard now, and they have to get everything right. They don't have the luxury of making mistakes, especially, the fines are north of $50,000 if they're right. And I don't know how many hits like that a dealership can take or a digital retailing provider can take before, what's that, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, and pretty soon you start talking about real money, right? This stuff adds up really, really quick. So.
That's right. And it's, this is one of those situations where, we're kind of an easy target in this industry because so many people at the dealership level have to understand this ruling and have to abide by it. Salespeople, managers, F&I people, and to try to get everybody on the same page on something like this can be troublesome, to say the least. So therefore, we're really leaving ourselves out there if we don't have the right protections and the right training in place to get fined and be right on the chopping block, right?
Yeah, it's top down, right?
Yeah.
It's it's training, it's finding compliance experts to help guide you, and there's some brilliant ones out there.
Right.
We've been blessed to know several, which has kind of helped us literally evolve some of our technology, which is to kind of parallel some of the requirements. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff that has to do with personally identifiable information, all that, and that's not our piece, right? But all those elements have to be respected, right, and treated properly, and the whole process has got to be polished, right? So it's finding the right technology partners, finding the right consultants, working with the right compliancy people, tons of training, and basically getting your house in order to make sure that you don't have an exposure.
And as you know, with the high turnover rate in the car business, and now we're realizing a even higher turnover rate than the last 3 years, because there were a lot of salespeople and managers and F&I people and what have you that were making a ton of money because of the shortage of cars and the high gross profits. But now from the dealers that I speak with around the country, they're saying, uh-oh, those men and women are not hanging around, because now it's the real car business and they got to sell, and the gross profits are coming down, which means the commissions are coming down. You know the rest of the story. But if the turnover is there in the dealership like it was prior to 2020, it's pretty high. So the training and the safety net for this thing has got to be rock solid, right? Because you could have somebody come in there in your dealership and compliance training, what have you, and in 6 months it's a whole new group in there. And if you don't have the training of those people and the safety nets in place, you're in trouble, right?
Yeah, I think the knife kind of cuts both ways, right? You may also have people who come into your dealership that have gotten great training who might be able to help you out. But you're absolutely right. And with any business, especially in the software industry, you get developers, and we're such a niche product that it's 6 months to a year before someone's really bringing tremendous value to our team.
Right.
Because they got to learn what we do.
Sure.
And
good point.
That's easy. So we really want to hold on to them. And it's kind of the same thing, right? You spend a lot of time training people, and it's not just training to be compliant, but also training them to fit in with your culture, your store. Right? You don't want to lose them. And turnover's nuts, right? People have gotten to the point where they have to learn to sell cars again because it's no longer take a number, right? There's inventory.
That's right. So do you think other stakeholders that focus on retailing have a chance or have to change, I should say, the way that they market, advertise their cars, such as manufacturers, digital retailing companies, advertising firms? I mean, it's got to shake them up too, right?
I think it impacts the entire journey from point of first contact through delivery of the vehicle, right? And messaging's got to be spot on, and so it's a big driver, and I think all the manufacturers for the most part have had a concerted effort to focus on getting there anyway. But then you also have that balance between, okay, what's tier 1 pricing versus tier 3 pricing, which is what's fair and that kind of stuff, and so that there's a lot of challenges out there. It's a bit of a mess. It's a big problem to solve, which, you and I have talked about this a bunch of times, right? Whenever you have big challenges, you've got big messes, big stressors, but also big opportunities. And, I think there's a lot of players in the space are going to have to work hard to come up with some solutions that help protect everybody.
Sure.
The manufacturers, lenders, the digital retailing providers, the dealerships, and ultimately the consumer, right? That's, I think, the whole reason why this initiative was started in the first place.
Right. And we're already at the end of January, so now there's only 5 months left to do this, right? I mean, it's imperative that dealers, or maybe 6 months, that they get on board now to come up with a strategy and make sure that they've got the right technologies in place, right? And they pay attention to this so it doesn't catch them blind, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, here we are in July and this law is going into effect, because they're going to be sending out the compliance police on this thing, probably early, in the second half of 2024, trying to catch dealers and make an example out of them, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some bells rung.
Yeah. Right.
Whether that's rightfully so or not, right? The ones that are really egregious, maybe they deserve to have their hands slapped. The ones that aren't, right? But
Yeah.
they just get bit because they're not up to speed. Those are the ones I'm the most concerned about.
Right.
And I think that as aggressive as this ruling is, and especially with the name associated with it,
Yeah.
I think most of the dealers are really standing up and taking notice and saying, hey, we really have to focus on protecting us. I know NADA is working on stuff behind the scenes to try and figure out how do we make sure our dealers are protected. And there's a lot of moving pieces to this one, and it's very aggressive. I'm not surprised that something came up, right? Because like we talked about, heat, friction.
Yeah.
You want to reduce the heat, right? You got to either stop the momentum or you got to stop the friction, right?
That's
and
right.
The appetite for consumers isn't going away, so the friction points have to be sorted out, and this
That's
is
right.
just one more driver to do that.
Yeah. Hey, before I let you get out of here, and I appreciate all the time you've given me today, talk to us about NADA. It's literally right around the corner, and it's going to be a huge show from all indications. So
Yeah.
Talk to us. Any big announcements coming out of your camp out there? Or
Yes, of course.
Got to stop by and see, right?
You know me well enough to know that we always have something up our sleeve.
Oh yeah, of course.
But we don't ever tell anybody about it until they get to the show. There's been tremendous efforts amongst multiple teams inside the S&P family to come up with some really revolutionary things. A lot of manufacturer and lender analytics, right? When you combine the data and the technology and science that we've developed over 3 decades with all of these amazing assets that S&P has, you can solve some really big problems and do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, no question.
So we've got some pretty big announcements that we'll be making. I never share them, but I'm not even at liberty to share them until NADA. But when you come by the booth, we'll wow you.
You always do.
Is that a fair one?
You always do.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
NADA is always a ton of work, but it's
yeah.
good work,
Oh, yeah.
right? And we get to see, you and Bridget and 1,000 other people we've made relationships with.
Of course. Yep.
So yeah, it's going to be a great one.
Okay, Rusty West, thank you so much for joining us on the show. For those people that want to learn more about how they can help you navigate through this new law, visit them at the Market Scan booth, and it is booth 3131 West. We'll show it on the screen here as well. But Rusty West, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Very much appreciate it.
Hey, I always love catching up with you. Thanks so much for having me.
It's the best. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching Driving Solutions, exclusively on CPTnews.com.